Hey, what's up, guys? Thank you for joining me for another video. Wow, it has been incredibly difficult to get this video out to you, as this is probably the 6th or 9th rendition. YouTube keeps blocking the original video, so I have to find out a different way to shoot this. I want to talk to you guys about Avengers Endgame. The movie just came out. I know this video is probably going to be uploaded a little bit late, but I wanted to talk about some of the holes in the story and maybe even a couple small details that kind of stood out to me in regards to the film that, kind of like, hey, that's not right. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. I don't want to make this too long of a video. If you like what you guys hear, definitely leave a comment in the comment section. I'd love to start a dialogue with you guys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and don't be afraid to slap that like button. After you subscribe, make sure you hit the bell notification, as I would like to start doing more movie reviews. So without any further ado, let's get started. A couple of the details that I won't say I had a problem with, but it kind of stuck out as interesting and maybe didn't really make a whole lot of sense. The first one of which is when Captain America was able to lift Thor's hammer. Now, I know that this is going to be somewhat of a how is that possible for a lot of people, but Marvel does a fantastic job of showing us where we're going by allowing us to remember where we've been. And what I mean by that is the first time we saw a planet outside of Earth in the MCU was in Thor. Thor's Asgardian world takes place in another dimension, another galaxy, if you will, that can only be traveled to by way of the Bifrost. Same thing with Guardians of the Galaxy. By the time the Guardians of the Galaxy movie came out, this was the first time that we had really explored other planets. What does that have to do with Captain America being able to lift Mjolnir in Endgame? If we go back to Age of Ultron, when they're all kind of sitting around after everyone who's not an Avenger has left the party, and they're all taking turns trying to lift Thor's hammer, Captain America is the only one that's able to actually make it budge. Now, ever since that movie came out, people have wanted to know, how is this possible? Well, Captain America, I think it's safe to say, is easily one of the most pure-hearted individuals in the MCU, as well as being a member on the Avengers. Even though he was able to budget, he wasn't able to lift it. Well, why is that? Well, we know between Age of Ultron and Endgame, something happened where Cap went from basically being kind of unworthy to being worthy. Well, what is that? Let's take a look at the events that unfolded in Civil War. In Civil War, we learned that Bucky, while under mind control of Hydra, is responsible for killing Tony Stark's parents. We learned that Captain America knew this secret and was basically withholding it from Tony Stark, and possibly, quite possibly, because again, this took place in, the 70s, the 80s even. We know, or the 90s rather, we know that this event, Captain America withholding this information from Tony Stark, Iron Man, is probably one of the things that was making him unworthy. After all, you're on a team, and a lot of the battles that you face have got to deal with life and death. And if you can't trust the man or the woman standing to your left or to your right, there's a good chance you don't have a closely knit group and you could die in one of these battles. So my best guess is Steve Rogers, knowing that Bucky is responsible for the death of Tony Stark's parents in Age of Ultron and withholding that information from Iron Man, is basically what was keeping him from being unworthy. Once that information was released and Tony Stark asked Steve Rogers if he knew, and Captain America says, yes, I knew. And they go on to have that epic battle, probably one of the more notable fight scenes in the MCU, that basically released Steve Rogers, Captain America, from being unworthy and moving him over to the worthy spot. Next, probably the biggest hole in the story, or minor detail that the whole entire story rests on, is when War Machine and Nebula get to Morag in 2014, and she tells Rhodey, hey, we need to find shelter. We're not the only ones looking for the Power Stone in 2014. And then we go through that sequence where we learn that her memory is entangled, or her network rather, is entangled with the current Nebula of that time. We learn that she gets captured, and the evil Nebula, we'll call her, basically takes on her identity so that she can pass off as the true Nebula and help usher Thanos into the future. Now, if you're paying attention to the sequence, it kind of went by really fast. But in order to know the significance of this scene, we've got to go back to before they even figured out the time travel, before they even figured out how they were going to get into the quantum realm, when Hulk, Scott Lang, Rhodey, and Nebula are all sitting inside the laboratory, and Hulk is getting ready to push one of the Pym particles into Scott Lang's waist belt. And Scott says, hey, you got to be careful. You're being really hulky. You can't break it. We've only got enough for everybody to do 1 round trip and 2 test runs. Sorry, 1 test run. And we learned that because there's only a very finite amount, 1 dose to get there, 1 dose to get back, we don't really have the time to make mistakes. We don't have the fortune, the resources to make mistakes. Well, why is that important? Because if we go back to that scene, the evil Nebula, after stripping the real Nebula, or the Avenger Nebula, of her Pym particle and her quantum realm GPS, she gives the Pym particle to Thanos, but she doesn't give Thanos the GPS bracelet that will help him navigate his way through the quantum realm. And this is one of the things I haven't really heard too many people talking about, because these two are basically one in the same. They have to be used together. Without the Pym particles, you don't get small enough or big enough to get in or out of the quantum realm. Yet at the same time, without the quantum realm GPS bracelet, you can't navigate and figure out how to get to where you're trying to go. So even though she gave him the Pym particle, which would allow him to get small enough, that doesn't explain how she herself would have got back into the quantum realm and back to the present day with the heroes. So without the Pym particle, again, you don't get small enough or big enough to get in or out of the quantum realm. And without the space GPS, the quantum realm GPS, you can't navigate your way. So there's be very, very easy to get lost. So that's not really a loose end that they tied up. So guys, definitely leave that comment in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And probably last but not least, well, actually there's just a couple. The first one is when we see the Red Skull for the first time in Infinity War, he's telling Thanos and Gamora the stone has a certain intelligence. It requires a special kind of sacrifice, basically a soul for a soul, meaning that you have to lose what you love in order to obtain the soul stone. So for Thanos, he loved his daughter Gamora. He sacrificed her. He lost her. He was gifted with the soul stone. In Endgame, we see Black Widow sacrificing herself so that Hawkeye can obtain the soul stone to get it back to our heroes so that they can forge their own Infinity Gauntlet to undo the Thanos snap. Now, the thing that doesn't really make any sense is each time the Red Skull says a soul for a soul. So one can pretty much surmise, or at least this is something I picked up, relatively immediately, shortly after the movie was off. I said, hey, if he said a soul for a soul, in order to get the soul stone, you have to give a soul. But we know if Captain America was going to give back the soul stone, technically wouldn't that bring Black Widow back? A soul for a soul. So I'd like to see, and I'm sure in the coming days they'll have, articles that break down this and if it can be undone or if it can't. But I hope they don't just take the cheap way out and say, well, that's it. It can't be undone. It is what it is. Moving on. The other question I had in regards to the movie, going back to Captain America, him being able to lift Mjolnir, is him being able to summon the lightning. Now, this is something I'm hoping that someone in the comment section who is a big fan of Thor can basically break down and make sense of for me. In order to summon Hammer, or the lightning, wow, I cannot talk today. In order to summon the lightning, I always thought that was Thor's power. In Ragnarok, we learned that the hammer wasn't the source of Thor's power. It was just a conduit to help him focus it. So how was Captain America able to summon the lightning in Endgame? Those are probably 3 or 4 of the biggest, questions I have pertaining to loopholes or, problems with the plot and the storyline. And I'll give you a bonus one. When Captain Marvel, after she obtains the Infinity Gauntlet, the Stark Tech Infinity Gauntlet from Peter Parker, and she is streaking down the battlefield like an open field receiver getting ready to score a touchdown, she never once had the thought, hey, I should just put this on real quick and I can just, end it. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But guys, this video is going on 10 minutes. I don't want to make it too long. If you like what you heard, leave a comment in the comment section below. definitely give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe, as again, I want to do more reviews on movies. Slap the bell for post notifications so you'll know anytime that I drop a new video. And let's start a dialogue here in the comment section. Till next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace.